Hello and welcome to jasonnewland.com. My name's Jason Newland. Please only listen when you can safely close your eyes. So this recording, I'm just deciding whether or not to mention the background mess. It's going to get tidied. I've been saying that for about 2 weeks. So this recording, I'm going to focus on boring your spider phobia away. So I'm thinking of maybe starting a podcast, bore your phobia away, or let me bore your phobia away. And the first one is going to be spiders. So, of course, I'm going to put that in the title, and it's one of those weird ones. It's like, if you're sensitive about spiders, don't listen or don't watch the video. But it's kind of for people that are sensitive about spiders. It's one of those weird ones. So, yeah, I'm not going to have any film footage of spiders or anything like that. I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to be boring. Nice, big, boring chat. And that's it, really. The way these recordings work, these videos work, is just see how you feel. Notice how you feel now. Notice how you feel before you press the play button. Notice how you feel throughout. And then how you feel afterwards. And then how do you feel the next day, the day after that. Noticing any changes. So I would recommend only listen when you can safely close your eyes, because I'm so boring that you might find that your eyes will get heavy and you'll need to just rest your eyes so that you can focus on not necessarily the words, but the meaning behind the words, the intention behind this recording, which is for you to no longer have an issue with spiders. That's kind of the intention right from the start. So there's not really going to do anything particularly strange other than just talking at you for a while. And that's it, really. Maybe you'll notice that some of these ideas and thoughts sink in, resonate. Perhaps you'll start to think a little bit differently about this thing that used to be an issue before you decided to listen to my voice. And that light is clicking for some reason. I wonder why. I do my best to try and get the sound so there's no weird sounds, and try to get the light in so it's enough, But there's always something. There's always like a crocodile in the garden or a whale landing on a roof. There's always something that's distracting. So I used to have a very intense phobia of spiders. Yeah. And now, did you hear that click? This is just a bottle of water. Bottle of water, water of bottle. Water of bottle. I haven't been up long, sorry. This is my water of bottle. And I'm going to microphone into the talk. So yeah, lots of clicks and knocks and stuff. So spiders. Now sometimes it's natural and it's a good idea to be wary of some spiders if you live in a place where there are poisonous spiders. It's logical. It's like you wouldn't have an arm wrestle with an alligator. It'd just be pointless. Especially as they've got such short arms, you'd have to be really close to their face. And no one wants to be close to the face of an alligator. They have a really smelly breath. So some things are logical, like obvious. But at the same time, let's say someone's got a fear of sharks. You haven't got to worry about sharks when you're in the city. A shark can't get to you when you're at university, or you're at work, or you're in the desert, or you're in a plane. There's only certain particular situations where you'd need to be even concerned about a spiky, like a fish. You wouldn't need to be worried about it in normal times. So spiders, sometimes the logic can be annoying, can't it? Has anyone ever said to you, "Oh, but look at the size of you and look at the size of the spider. You're like 1,000 times bigger than the spider. The spider's probably more scared of you than you are of him." It's like, yeah, that's logical. But, I think we can kind of do logic. We don't necessarily need someone to tell us logic. And if logic worked, because phobias are not logical, necessarily. I think being careful and wary of something is logical. If you're in a country where you have bears roaming around, then you need to be careful. If you see a bear, you need to be careful. If there's a bear at your front door ringing the doorbell, you don't invite it in for a cup of tea. Things like that. It's obvious. You don't swim in a place where there's crocodiles. You don't. It's just, it's just obvious things that we know. But it's not an irrational fear. A healthy respect for a dangerous animal is logical. It's just human, it's standard stuff. There's nothing weird about being a little bit concerned about giving a piggyback to a hippopotamus. It's like it's going to be heavy, it might hurt your back. So, it's just logic. So when it comes to spiders, admittedly they are quite small. But bearing in mind that a lot of the old movies and TV shows over the span of 120 years or whatever that movies have been going, 130 years, spiders have never really been given a good light, have they? They've never really been the star of the show, as in like the goodie. They've always been the baddie. Even going back to, was it the old Tarzan movies? There hasn't been a new Tarzan. Well, there has been a new Tarzan movie, but okay, forget that then. Yeah, the bloke that was in True Blood was in Tarzan. I've not watched it. But the old Tarzan, Johnny Weissmuller, Or was it Johnny Wise Muller? We called him Johnny Wise Miller. I was fine with that. He never complained. And he used to get stuck in his webs, and these spiders the size of his head would be crawling towards him, and just... No. That wasn't real. And he didn't really wrestle with the crocodiles either. He didn't really have a best friend that was a chimp. And he didn't ride on lions. You know what I mean? It's like not everything in that movie was real. Wrestling with a crocodile. He wouldn't just wrestle, he'd have a fight, wouldn't he? He'd actually have a full-on fight with a crocodile. I do wonder, was he really friends? Because the animals he did, I don't know how friendly he was with all the animals. King of the jungle. Yeah. So, there's been a lot of negativity about spiders over the years. Now my question to you is this. Where did you get the phobia from? Or, a better question, whose phobia is it? Eh? Whose phobia is it? Is it yours? Probably not. It might be, but is it yours? Do you know anyone else that's got a phobia of spiders? More importantly, do you know anyone that had a phobia of spiders when you were a child? Such as a parent, or a grandparent, or a teacher, or someone, an adult, when you was little, someone that you saw react very, very, you could say outrageously or very exaggerated because of a tiny little spider. I think we've probably all seen that. I have. Which makes me wonder, maybe you too also realise that maybe the phobia is not yours. Maybe it doesn't belong to you. So why would you want to keep something that causes you distress if it doesn't belong to you in the first place? You could just give it back. Wow. Mind-blowing. You could just realise you're not that person. You're not that other person. Even if it was a parent, regardless of how close you were to them. Like, were you close? Yeah, it was my dad. But it doesn't, you know what I mean, might not have got on as well. Not everyone gets on with their parents. So, was it your phobia? Is it your phobia? Was it, or was it someone else's? What else have you adopted from them? I mean, the thing is, you wouldn't take it on yourself, would you? So they must have forced you to have this phobia. What kind of parent would do that? Because if they gave it to you, then you could just drop it on the floor and walk away. You just give it back. You wouldn't need to hold on to it, would you? But they must have forced you to have this phobia. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to keep it. You could just give it up. Like, I'm trying to click my fingers. That's it. The word like that. So if you borrowed that phobia off them, maybe without them even knowing, which means they're not really to blame. You've just copied their behaviour, which means you don't own it. You're not being forced to have that behaviour, to have that response to a spider, little spider. So You can just let it go. It's just easy. Now, if it's been forced upon you, then of course that's a different situation. Were you forced to have that phobia? I mean, some people will laugh at the idea. How can you mean forced? Exactly, because you can't be, can you? Not really. You can't be forced. You can be indoctrinated. You can be... We are affected by what we see, what we hear. You know, when we're little kids, we're affected. I would argue that we're affected as adults as well. It's not just when we're kids. I'm affected by what I see. And it's amazing that there's these arguments about video games and really violent video games and all that's going to affect people. And arguments about whether or not a small child would be affected by witnessing violence or violent lyrics in a song. It's like, of course they will be, as will adults. Not necessarily going to be affected negatively, but they're going to be affected because we're all affected by everything that happens to us, however small and minute. I mean, have you ever watched something, I don't know, like YouTube or maybe a movie, and there's just like one sentence and it really resonates with you? Like really resonates, like hits you like, whoa, wait a minute. And it changes the way you think. Not about everything, but it's almost like it's put an extra light on your torch or your flashlight or whatever, and you can see clearer. Like a new prescription for your goggles. It's like suddenly you're seeing it from a different direction. Or you're seeing something else that was there, but you hadn't seen it before because you hadn't looked over there. I suppose you could learn to use peripheral vision, but you know. And once you know that thing, you can't unknow it. Like, no matter what happens, you can't unknow the fact. For example, I don't know, it's not your phobia. It doesn't belong to you. You don't have to hold on to it. Once you know that, you can't forget that. You literally can't. It's going to play on your mind in a good way, not in a bad way. It's going to start to like, why would I be scared of that when I've had no issues with it? Now, that's, if you have had an issue, that's a different situation. There's ways of addressing that as well. But then there's that whole thing, a one-off situation. The chances of it happening again. I mean, you know, there's the whole like old theory that if you get struck by lightning, it's unlikely to ever happen again. Although there was that one man, and he got struck about 6 times. And eventually it did finalise his life. Now the question would be, like, would you go out in a storm after the first time? I wouldn't. I mean, I'm, you know, there's a real reason to be very careful about lightning situations. Go and live somewhere where it's less likely to be lightning. Go in and stay in. Stay inside during that period when there's lightning. But generally things are unlikely to occur again. So I was attacked by a dog when I was a kid. Wasn't really that bothered about dogs though. A little bit concerned about those type of dogs. That particular dog. But it just jumped on me. But it didn't hurt me. I did get bitten by another dog, but that was putting something through a letterbox. Not my... my finger got bitten off. The end of my finger. But I was putting leaflets through a door. And unfortunately that does happen. It's one of those things. It's a numbers game. If there's a dog the other side of the door and you put stuff through a letterbox, there's a chance that you're going to get nipped by a dog. And there are ways of doing it. I mean, if you've got leaflets that are long enough, you can push them in so you just don't push them all the way through. That was the problem I was doing. I was pushing them all the way through, and half my arm was in the door. So that dog just saw was this and thought, oh, I'll eat that. So there was something that happened when I was 16, living in a flat above a chip shop. You may say that's not relevant to the story, but I say if you're going to tell a story, make it exciting. So I lived above a chip shop, and I went to bed. I've done that a few times, and I see this spider on the wall, just climbing down the wall, and I'll get out of bed. Obviously I scream first, of course, and I realised no one's listening, so I thought there's no point screaming, is there? There's nothing to be gained from screaming if no one else is going to hear me and come and give me attention and see if I'm alright. So I didn't bother anymore. And I couldn't go to bed until I found that spider. It's just a little spider, a little house spider. And I'm doing that. And I'm probably spending about an hour looking for this spider. And then something dawned on me. It just clicked in my head. It's not my phobia. This isn't mine. It doesn't belong to me. I've just borrowed it from my stepmom. She had a spider phobia, and she would just completely act up when she saw one. And I learned that from her. Prior to knowing her, when I was 7, I used to eat daddy long legs, sorry. I used to eat, I'm talking when I was little, not when I was in my 40s. Yes, I didn't eat any more creepy crawlies after the age of 42. But no, I used to I wasn't scared of spiders when I was a little kid. And it'd be hard to find a little kid that's scared of spiders. Generally, because they don't care. Some will, but generally, just a spider. It's fascinating. It's no different from a worm. You have to be taught as a child what's dangerous and what's not dangerous. But we also learn that things are dangerous when they're not dangerous because of parents' phobias and overreaction. Because if someone acts the same towards a little spider as they would do towards a big bear trying to get into the house, a little kid is going to obviously think, well, that must be as scary, as frightening, and as dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that if you just didn't worry about a spider that you wouldn't worry about a bear, because you should worry about a bear getting in your house if a bear's on your doorstep. And I'm not trying to give you a bear phobia. It was good. I used to be scared of spiders, and I listened to this bold Englishman with glasses, and he's a very handsome, sexy man. And I got rid of. He bought so exciting. It's boring. So exciting. All his stories had me on the edge of my seat. It did. And got rid of the phobia. I wasn't scared of spiders anymore. But every other bloody animal. No, that isn't my intention. But you'd have to be really, really a little bit unintelligent, probably, to not be wary of a big bear. There's a very famous movie about a man that loved bears, and he he was filming them, and he used to go up to them, and yeah, it didn't end well for him. But he didn't respect. He loved them, but he didn't respect them. He didn't respect the reality of the situation. I mean, he was in love with bears. I'm guessing that last 20 minutes of his life, he didn't love bears so much. But it was a very fascinating. It's a movie, but it's a documentary of his life. There's a lot of film footage of him. We didn't bathe with them, but he just loved them so much. But you gotta have healthy boundaries with stuff like that. It's just like in life, isn't it? If you know that you've got my stomach just sounded like a little frog. That's weird. The thing is, I've just done a poo, so it should be alright. Did I just say that on camera? Edit that out. So whose phobia is it? So that's so I was there, and I realised as I was looking for this little spider, that this is not my phobia. It's not mine. I don't own it. And even more so, the fact that she'd left at this point. She'd moved away, never really saw much, really again since then, since the age of 16. So it's like, why should I, and this is going to sound personal anyway, so I won't, but my mentality was, why should I have her phobia if I don't have her love? See, don't worry, I'm not going to start crying. I'm not. But there was that, like, why do I want someone's phobia for? It's just pointless. That's her. I probably didn't use the word phobia at the time. I probably used the word fear. But, it's the same thing. Although some fear is healthy. It's naturally to have some fear, to be completely fearless all the time would potentially be dangerous. And I had moments when I'm a bit fearless in the past, and got myself in a few little scrapes. So it's good to have a healthy, not so much fear but respect, to kind of be in touch with the reality of the moment, the reality of what's around you, and to just not ignore stuff, if that makes sense. But as far as a little spider, for me, I see people with, like on buses, absolutely bricking it when they see a wasp, like screaming. And I'll just sit there, and the wasp never bothers me. And it's been the same for decades. Every single situation where I'm around, where people are just going absolutely, like really a bit nutty, to be honest, over a wasp or a bee. Not so much a bee, but wasps have got a bad reputation. Bees are like the good guys. They're the angels, wasps are the devils. It's not fair. See, bees have got an attitude. You don't realise it, but they've got a bit of an attitude about them. They're a bit cocky. Like, oh, if it wasn't for us, we'd be all, you just, you need us. The human race would just, run out of food because we're the ones that produce and all that stuff. So what are you talking about? Pollination, mate, pollination. It's like, wait a minute, Mr. B, man. Mr. B, you're acting like bees are the only animals that pollinate. Well, no, you're not though, are you? What do you mean? We're known for being pollinators. The biggest pollinator is the wind. Every animal that lives in a field, a forest, pollinate. They run through, they collect stuff, and then, it lands on another thing. Birds pollinate. Human beings even pollinate. They walk through stuff. The little stuff gets on them. I don't know what it's called. Is it nectar? And then it mixes and it lands on some other thing. Pollination happens. It's just not just bees that do it. And I'm guessing probably wasps do it as well. Oh, but we do it on purpose. That's our aim. Is it though? Is it? Isn't your aim to collect honey? Is it honey? Or to produce honey? I don't know. He said, you don't know, do you? I said, no, I'm not sure, but I don't think I think the pollination is a secondary benefit from what your purpose is. And he said, you might be true. I said, what do you mean you might be? Don't you mean I might be right? He said, no, in the bee world, we say you might be true. Okay. He said, wait a minute, did you understand what I meant when I said you might be true? Yeah, you meant it might be true. We understood. So there's no, if you can comprehend the sentence I just said to you, there is no miscommunication, therefore no need to correct me, Mr. Human. As I said, attitude, proper attitudes bees have got. Spiders, on the other hand, they're just chilled. They just wait around. All they want, all a spider wants, is a fly. That's all they want. They're not bothered about anything else. If you speak to a spider, it will tell you, like, what's your main aim in life? Peace. They want peace. And something to eat every now and then, a fly. They don't need lots of flies. Just, they don't go hunting, they just sit and wait. What do you do while you're waiting? Because you've got no television, have you? They said, well, yeah, if we sit in your room, we just watch your television. It's a bit rude. I said, what about the ones in the kitchen? And one of them laughed and said, we watch you cook. And they all laughed because I don't really cook much. It's being sarcastic. So the spiders are sarcastic, to be fair. They're not always, they're calm and chilled out, but they are a little bit sarcastic, a little bit pissy taking, a little bit, just a little bit. But bees are cocky. Bees are very cocky. I remember I bought some new shoes, so these boots, a couple of years back, and I'm walking through the field and saw this bee. And the bee stopped and started laughing at me. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, those boots. Why are you laughing at my boots? He said, because they just look too big on you. I said, well, I've just got big feet. He said, what size are they? I said, size 10. He said, they're not that big. I said, yeah, but I'm 5'3". So size 10 feet are quite big for a 5'3" person. And he said, but 5'3" is huge. I said, it is for you because you're a bee. He said, oh, okay. In fact, doesn't everything look big to you? No, ants don't look big. They look average size. Then he flew off. I don't know if that was a good example, really. Perhaps I need to polish that story up to make it a bit more interesting. But I remember talking to one of the spiders that lives here. I've got a few. And I said, what do you do all day? You just sit there in the corner, right in the corner of the room, just sitting there, staring at me. He said, do you really think you're that important? You think I've got nothing better to do than to stare at you all day? Which I thought I took a little bit offensive, It's like, okay, I just assumed that you were. He said, well, no. If anything, you're the one doing the staring, Mr. Human. All right. I said, what do you do then? He said, we meditate. It's what our spiders do. We do our web and we meditate. We're getting in touch with our inner being. We're trying to get in touch with the energy of the universe. We are peaceful creatures. We don't even like the taste of flies. Now think about it. Flies, they're always, they're not tasty. I know they look juicy, but they're not. Ooh, don't like flies. Why do you eat them then? Because there's nothing else to eat. I said, well, no, I suppose. He said, well, look at the size of me. What am I going to do? Go fishing? Huh? Get across and get a spear and take a buffalo down? No. Kind of limited to things, and they have to come to me. I'm not strong enough to drag things around. It's not like I can grab a gazelle and carry it up a tree. There's some limited. There's a few limitations to what I can do being a little spider. And also we don't live long either. So give me some peace. Leave me alone, will you? I said, what do you mean leave you alone? He said, you're hassling me. Normally you don't bother me. But today, because you want to make a recording about spider phobias, you think that we're just going to talk to you and do an interview. Are you going to pay me? Are you going to pay me, Mr. Human? Like, why are you being like this? He said, I don't know, it's been a weird week. I said, what do you mean? Well, okay, I went out for a little walk, went into the garden, and this kid was in the garden playing with me. We were just playing. We were playing snakes and ladders. It's something that I like to play. And the little kid from next door, we were just playing that, and occasionally we play hopscotch and stuff like that. Well, on this occasion, his mother comes out. Normally she doesn't come out. We just have fun together. His mum came out, said, Jimmy, what are you doing? And Jimmy looked up and looked at me. She looked down and looked at me. She screamed, and she jumped onto the fence, onto the top of the fence. Well, it was good balancing, to be fair. And then, what did she try and do? She jumped off and started trying to stamp on me. So I'm like looking to Jimmy, help me, mate. And he looks confused. He starts crying. It's like, but we were best friends. And the next thing I know it, he's confused, he's crying, he doesn't know what to think because his mum's so upset. So I run off, go back upstairs, and I think, well, that's it, I'm not going out there when she's there. Blimey, it's a bit of a handful. Not in a good way. And whatever that means. Spider interspecies. Anyway, I went back down there, then about 2 days later, I always check out the window. She weren't around, he was down there playing. Went down there. He screamed and started trying to stamp on me. What the heck was that about? So, it's been a tough week. So I've just been up there, in the corner, in my little area. Might seem small to you, but for me it's like a three-story mansion. And trying to meditate on what happened, and I think what it is her extreme reaction to me just being there doing nothing affected him, like instantly affected how he felt. And that was, he wouldn't play with me. I don't know if I can find a way to get him to just forget that, but it's such a shame because we had such fun. I realised I said the word such twice in one sentence, but I think it worked. I don't think anyone noticed. I said, I noticed because you just mentioned it. He said, yeah, but you noticed the most pointless things. I said, why do you say that? I don't notice the most pointless things. He said, you do, and you're also getting off track. This is supposed to be a recording to help people to stop, being concerned about us little spiders. Okay, all right, fair enough. I said, have you got any suggestions? He said, what do you mean? I said, have you got any suggestions about how I could help other people that have got or that used to have spider phobias because of a parent getting worried about it that could help? He said, well, have you tried there is that technique, the phobia cure, isn't there? The short phobia cure technique. I said, yeah. So why don't you just do that? Why do you have to waffle on for like an hour when you could have just done that in 10 minutes and it would have been a lot easier, a lot simpler? I know, but this isn't supposed to be like this. Is like a different way of doing it. It's me doing like a boring conversation and just being more relaxed with it and not trying to tell anyone what to do or how to think or anything. Just just give a few ideas and like a buffet. Like a buffet, give a few ideas. There's a few things there and you can choose which one you like and test it. And the spider said, you mean like your old hypnotic buffet podcasts? I said, yeah, it was like that. Why do you stop doing them? I said, I don't know. He said, why are you licking your lips so much? I said, I don't know. Thanks for noticing. Well, you could do a version of that phobia thing. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, what you could ask if somebody's had an issue with spiders and maybe it's not connected with somebody else. So if they had an issue but it's not connected to a family member or somebody else, so they've not borrowed that phobia, because obviously if they have, at this point in recording, they're just going to drop it because they're going to realise that they don't need it. It's completely pointless. Like, why? Why would you take on someone else's stuff like that? It's like, okay. I mean, that would be the equivalent of me walking around and picking up someone else's dog poo and carrying it around. Like every day, just carrying more and more poo around. And the spider said, it's nothing like that, is it? I said, no. I thought I was being clever for a second, and he said, what have I told you about that? It's rude. The spider's so rude to me sometimes, but I think that's how we get on, like a bit of messing about, verbal sparring. And the spider said to me, well, what you could do, get the people to imagine a spider, but then change it, drain the colour out of the picture. Maybe if this was a scenario where they had an experience that wasn't particularly useful to them, Drain the picture out, drain the colour out. Add a silly tune, like the Benny Hill tune. I said, I know what the Benny Hill tune is. He said, all right, but not everyone might do. I said, well, it's not going to work for anyone that doesn't know what the Benny Hill tune is it? Because they're not going to be able to do the Benny Hill tune. And besides, no one under the age of 30 is probably even going to know who Benny Hill is. He said, the spider said, don't underestimate young people's intelligence. I wasn't underestimating. You can't even say the sentence. I was not underestimating anyone's intelligence. It's just Benny Hill stopped being on television in this country in the early 90s, which was 30 years ago. Yeah, but they still play it. Yeah, they do still play it in the evenings on some of the random channels. So you could use that as a tune. You could use anything as a tune. What about Barbie Girl? I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world, wrapped in plastic. It's fantastic. It could be any song. It could be just like a happy tune. And you could picture that. This is the spider speaker now. You could picture that spider, or picture me with a little hat on, maybe a little Mexican sombrero. Sombrero's Mexican? Sorry if they're not. Or a bowler hat, you know, like the old London office workers used to wear in the 50s or 40s. A weird tune being played, and you can imagine like little tambourines, or you know, all the different arms playing a different instrument. You could turn it upside down. You could give it different colours, add a colour, maybe just add the colour green. Put it into a scenario that was just really ridiculous. I'm trying to think. Maybe walking along the moon, perhaps. But wouldn't I float? Yeah, you'd float. I don't know. I imagine if you weigh so little, eventually you just wouldn't float. Gravity wouldn't really affect you, which shows you how often I attended science classes at school. Not very often. Another thing you could do actually is, if it was a scenario, you could rewind it and fast forward it and just replay that scenario. So for example, for me, if I had the scenario of this, doesn't really work for me, but if it was an issue, this spider being on the wall when I was 16, if I go back there and imagine that, and I just like do a little marker at the beginning and a little marker at the end, and just fast forward to the end where I realise, hey, this isn't my phobia. And then rewind to the start again when I'm going, oh, the spider, oh no. And then fast forward it when it's not my phobia. And then rewind really quickly. At the same time, and just have that playing as you go backwards and forwards. Oh, a spider. Oh. And then, that's not my phobia. Oh. And you can just change the tone of your voice, and to the point where basically what it does, if you imagine a CD or a record, like an LP, vinyl, and it's got the groove in, and it only works if the groove is there and it's untouched. Once you scratch the groove, it doesn't work. Or a DVD. player, a DVD disc, once it gets scratched, it just doesn't work. Part of it might work, so what you do is you scratch it again and again and again and again, to the point where the whole thing just doesn't work at all. So by fast forward and rewinding, adding some music, adding a silly voice, I mean, you could just imagine ice cream cones falling from the ceiling for no reason at all. You know, imagine the spider made of Skittles for no reason at all. It's just to make it even sillier. And that's it. Play around with it. I mean, to be fair, if someone else had given you, if you'd kind of adopted the phobia from someone else, then you realised that it's not yours. I mean, what if that person has hemorrhoids? Does that mean you got to have their hemorrhoids as well? I mean, if that person eats certain food that maybe you don't like, does it mean you got to start eating their food that they like and maybe you don't like it? Imagine if it's peanut butter and you can't stand peanut butter or Marmite or lemon curd or Weetabix or something that was semolina, something that you just or sweet corn on your pizza. Some people don't like that. Something that just makes you go, that's grim. But because you've adopted their phobia, does that mean, well, we've got to start having sweet corn on your pizza or pineapple? Did I say pineapple or sweet corn? I don't know. Or eating peanut butter sandwiches or Marmite, peanut butter and Marmite with sweet corn. Yeah. It doesn't make sense, does it? It does, like, well, where does that stop? They might cycle to work. Does that mean I've got to cycle to work as well? It'd take me 3 hours. They just live round the corner. It's easy for them. But I've got to do what they do because I've got to have that phobia. No. It's theirs, not yours. If they want to keep it, let them keep it. If they get something out of it, let them have it. We don't need it. Which means then you don't share it with someone else. You don't end up sharing it with another little kid or someone else that will see you as a role model and take on that phobia, which is of no use to anybody. Yeah. I think the recording went quite well. So all together now. There's a hero. If you look inside your screen, he's a baldy man who could be green. I don't know what that means. That was weird. I should have rehearsed. I should get some kind of song together. Could be green. Oh well. So yeah, how do you feel now? How do you feel now when you think of spiders? How do you feel about them? How do you feel different to how you felt before? And you know what? Over the next few hours, maybe few days, you might find that something's changed, like permanently changed. In a positive way. Always a positive way. Yeah. And that brings us to the end of this recording. Thank you for listening. Remember to be kind to yourself, because you do deserve to be happy. Lots of love. Bye.